I know self-publishing's not for everyone. Nothing is. But if you've considered self-publishing for even a minute, listen up, because I'm betting I know what's holding you back from exploring it further or getting started. Number one, you think the self-publishing process is a lot harder than it actually is. And number two, you're understandably afraid of doing it, air quote, wrong. So I've created a new free resource for you. It's called the Self-Publishing Starter Kit, and you can get instant access to it by clicking the link in the show notes or visiting publishaprofitablebook.com/self-publishing 101. In this free training, you'll discover the exact 4 steps to focus on and mistakes to avoid so you can publish an incredible book that's indistinguishable in quality from a New York Times bestseller without overthinking, overguessing, or overspending in areas that won't make a difference. Again, visit publishaprofitablebook.com/self-publishing 101 to get instant access. Welcome to the Write the Damn Book Already podcast. My name is Elizabeth Lyons. I'm a 6-time author and book editor, and I help people write and publish powerful, thought-provoking, wildly entertaining books without any more overthinking, second-guessing, or overwhelm than absolutely necessary. Because let's face it, some overthinking, second-guessing, and overwhelm is going to come with the territory if you're anything like me. I believe that story and shared perspective are 2 of the most potent ways we connect with one another, and that your story, perspective, and insights are destined to become someone else's favorite resource or pastime. For more book writing and publishing tips and solutions, and plenty of free and low-cost resources, visit publishaprofitablebook.com. Hi, my friend. Every once in a while, I get to have sort of an unexpected conversation with someone who isn't an author, but is book adjacent, as I say. So I've done this in the past. I had Kathleen Schmidt, who's a publicist. I've, of course, had Jen Hansen-DePaula. And by the way, I'm going to have her again soon. Jen is my go-to for all things author marketing, and we're going to do a 2024 roundup where she's going to bring everyone sort of up to date on what's working, what's not working, what's coming down the pike. She works with so many authors and she sees so much that she's just such a great resource for that. And then this week, I had so much fun talking with Tracy Thomas. Thanks to her amazing publicist, Jackson Musker, who reached out to me. And listen, I'm putting his info in the show notes. If you are an author looking for a publicist, I am going to heavily encourage you to connect with Jackson. And that's saying a lot because in the author space, it is not always easy to find a publicist who knows what they're doing, who you vibe with, who's priced reasonably. And to be fair, I don't know what Jackson's prices are. What I know is that I think I'd almost pay him just about anything because his communication with me through this whole thing was next level. And I got the furthest thing from a form letter from him asking about doing an episode with Tracy that I think I've ever gotten. So big props to Jackson. So Tracy Thomas is the creator and host of the critically acclaimed literary podcast, The Stacks. Side note, I had never heard of this podcast, even though it's critically acclaimed. And I am now a subscriber and working my way through several hundred episodes because it's really fun. It's very well produced. And of course, my TBR pile is now going to be like, I'm going to have to build it its own container. I don't even know what I'm going to do. Tracy is a passionate champion of books and a deeply curious interviewer. She's also a monthly contributor to NPR's Here and Now, a columnist for SheReads.com, and the creator of the LAist live literary series, One for the Books. She also hosts and moderates literary events, book festivals, and author talks nationwide. And she has a Substack called Unstacked, which I'm going to have her back because we didn't make it to talking about Substack and Patreon, which sort of off camera or off audio, we talked about this a little bit at the end of our conversation. And I asked her if she would be willing to come back in 2025 to talk more about that because it's a question I hear often from authors. Should I start a Substack or a Patreon or something of the like? So I want to get all of her yeses and nos and do's and don'ts and lesson learned and all those sorts of things. which she agreed to do, thankfully. Away from the stacks, Tracy is a lover of hot takes, a watcher of sports, and a true snack enthusiast. We talked about that first in this interview because I need all the good snacks to stress eat while I'm writing. Originally from Oakland, California, she now lives in LA with her husband, Mr. Stacks, and her twin boys, the mini Stacks. How cute is that? And also, I didn't know when we first got connected that she also has twin boys. Hers are 5, mine are 23, but let's not do the math on how much older that makes me than Tracy. This was such a fun conversation. All of Tracy's info is in the show notes. Let's just get right into it. You have a snack. What's your favorite snack right now? I do need to know that because I need to be inspired a little bit.
Okay, so I have one traditional sort of official snack that is my favorite snack for my whole life, at least since high school. And that is you put goldfish and Swedish fish in the same container. We call it a pescatarian. You don't eat them at the same time, but you kind of like do like salty and then like a little sweet and salty and sweet.
Okay.
But if you put them together, the salt from the goldfish kind of like gets on the Swedish fish. So it's sort of like, it's delicious. So that's like my
really
standard favorite go-to.
Okay.
It's just was Halloween. So I have a lot of Halloween candy in the house. Have you ever had a Take 5 bar?
No.
Okay. Delicious. They're Reese's. It's 5 ingredients. I never get it right. It's like cookie, pretzel, caramel, chocolate, and peanut butter. That's it. It's a maze. Also reignited my love of Butterfingers this year.
I used to be a Butterfinger girl.
I hadn't had one in like at least a decade.
At least.
And it is delicious. I mean, popcorn is great. I prefer the like at home from the bag popped as opposed to the like bag from the store kind of cold. I like the warm, like with all
you
the
like it fresh
butter
out of the microwave with all the carcinogens.
Yeah.
Like,
but I don't want to make it myself on a stove and put my own.
Oh no, that's a lot of work.
I only want it to kind of be like a neon yellow orange color.
Right.
Otherwise
100%.
I don't want it.
Where when you reach into the bag and you pull your hand out, your knuckles are covered in the that I agree with you. That is a thing. Yeah. You know what I've gotten back into recently, and I'm not super happy about this? Snickers bars.
Okay, love a Snickers. Love.
I think I forgot how good they were, and then someone had one, and I was really hungry, so I ate one, and that was the beginning of the end, kind of.
Yeah, it's a delicious, delicious evergreen candy.
What show are we doing? What is the
I mean, I can talk about you started with snacks. It was a bad place to start because I could do this for a year.
I could as well. That's kind of the challenge. And I do have to say, like, your Instagram, first of all, I'm so grateful for Jackson.
Isn't he great?
So, oh my gosh, he's so great. So I get, and you probably do too, emails on steroids for like, oh, come have this person on, whatever.
Right.
I have to be honest. I look at the majority of them. I don't respond to the majority of them because they're all form letters and many of them have I got one the other day that was fun. It was like, it wasn't even about books. It was like, I'm a crypto expert. I'd love to contribute. Let me know.
I get those all the time.
Like,
the crypto guys.
You?
Yeah. Or like, you should have this dentist on your show. I'm like, okay.
Right.
Say more.
So when Jackson messaged me, as I do, I open them, but it was such a nice email. And it was so, for lack of a better word, curated. Like it was personalized and everything. And I could tell that he was just writing it to me. It wasn't going out to 300 other people.
Yeah. He's
and so then I fell down the rabbit hole of all things Tracy, including starting with really the Instagram. Your Instagram is fucking dangerous. Like, have you ever been told that?
No.
Okay, it's really fucking dangerous because you have all these beautifully curated pictures of like your TBR piles and stuff or a TBR pile. And I'm here to tell you that I don't know the vast majority of those books, which means I want them.
Yeah. Okay. I have been told that people do get mad at me for making their TBR longer. Not specifically the Instagram, but just in general.
No, it's it's like it's bad.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say one thing about Jackson really quickly because I love Jackson and he is my publicist. And I actually had a similar experience to you. He pitched a book to me on my show that I ended up having on because I loved his form letter so much, or his letter so much.
Mhm.
And after that, I reached out to him and was like, I need a publicist. Will you do this? And he was like, I mean, I don't normally do podcasters. I normally just do book publicity. But I was like,
Yeah.
you know all the places that I want to be. And I liked your letter so much. So I convinced him to work with me. We've been working together now. That was in 2021 or 2022. So we've been working together on and off since then. And I know your show is a show for writers
Mhm.
who like about books. And if you need a book publicist, Jackson is the one. Like I have dealt with so many book publicists, especially independent book publicists, and they're very hit or miss. Jackson is
Yep.
the real deal. And I just am so grateful to him because we spent hours on the phone curating a list of shows that I wanted to be like, it's not
Mhm.
like he's just like, here, I'm going to email my list. He really like, we talk, we think about what's the angle, how would this be a good fit? Like, it's just a really like hands-on experience, which I appreciated. And I think authors, Jackson Musker, I should say his last name,
So
Musker.
Musker, and I will put his info in that. You've just made the day of not just me, myself, and I, but also so many people who, all 7 of my listeners, because so often this is a topic that comes up quite literally all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Like, do I need a publicist? Is that going to be the secret to me making millions of dollars? And of course, I'm like, no, that is not
No.
going to be the secret. But people are so hesitant
Mhm.
to hire publicists or marketing, media, anything,
Yeah.
because you just don't know.
Yeah.
So it almost always comes from word of mouth.
Yeah.
Like word spreads fast, and then those individuals don't have any space left on their roster because they get booked quickly. So I will definitely put his info in the show notes because he was great. And not only was he a great intro, but he followed it all the way through.
Yeah. Oh,
So
yeah.
we had like multiple things scheduled and there was canceled and there were reminders going out that
Yeah.
weren't supposed to go out, and he was on it.
Yeah, he's amazing. So
Yeah.
yes, for people who need,
Okay.
because I can vouch for him as a client, but also as a person who's been on your end of it, right? Like I've worked with him both
Absolutely.
ways and he's amazing.
So what I was listening yesterday, and I'm about halfway through to your interview with Jason DeLeon. Am I saying that his last
Jason
name?
DeLeon. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was riveted.
Yeah.
And that's not even the type of book I would normally pick up. And now it's on the TBR list, like it's in the cart, right? What brought you to do this? Because you have a really impressive, fun looking whole thing going on.
Yeah. What brought me to do the show or specifically that episode?
The show.
Okay.
But you can also say that episode. I mean, it's interesting because you have such a wide variety, which I strive for as well. Like I want traditional and hybrid and self and just thinking about it and switching and all the things, because we talk more about the process.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And so what got you interested in it as a whole and then deciding who you're going to talk to?
Yeah. So I'll tell you the truncated version of the
Mhm.
backstory because it's sort of a long, convoluted story. But basically, I was a reader my whole life. Then I moved to New York, or I lived in New York for a long time. Then I moved to LA, which is where I am now. And when I moved to LA, I didn't read as much. And I basically like stopped reading because you're driving, you're not on the subway. So it's harder to fit in time. And I, in 2016, was like, I want to get back into reading. I'm extremely goal oriented. So I was like, I'm going to read 1 book a month for 2016. I got to the end of the year. I finished my 12th book. I jokingly said to my husband, like, am I the greatest reader that ever lived? Like, I was like really tooting my own horn. The next year I was like, okay, I'm going to read 13 books this year because not only do I love setting a goal, but I also like to achieve my goals. I do not like to set goals that I cannot achieve. That is not in my personality. I got to 24 books that year. I just like really got into it. I started posting about them on my Instagram, my personal Instagram, not the stacks, didn't exist yet. And a friend of mine was like, you should start a blog. And I was like, I hate writing. I'll never do it. And then I was like, I read this book that I loved. I wanted to listen to a podcast episode about it. I couldn't find one that fit what I wanted. And I was like, maybe I should start a show where I get to talk about books in the way that I want to talk about them, like with the people I want to talk about them with, and just like gush about books. So I always tell people, sort of similarly to you, but opposite, is that I'm a book podcast that is for readers. It is about reading. It is not about writing. So while I do ask questions about process or whatever, and like while I have had editors on or whatever. It's really a show about reading. So the questions are what readers want to know. Like, I want to
Right.
know why this character was so awful. I don't want to know how you thought about the character. I just want to know why this character shot her husband or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and so then I just started the show. I started it with only talking to my friends, like people that I knew in real life who I knew were readers. My first guest was an English teacher because I was like, I don't know that I'm going to know how to talk about books actually. So I
Mm.
had my first guests, you'll notice, are like professional writers, like TV writers, professors, English teachers. And then eventually, like, I sort of found my swing. I figured it out. And authors were like, can I come on the show? I was like, okay. Sure. Yes. Yes. And it was definitely like a switch for me at first, being like, oh, this person's here to promote their work,
Right.
not so much talk about books. And in the
Yeah.
beginning, like the first few authors on the show, I don't really let them promote their, like, there's like 10 minutes at the beginning where we talk about books. And then
Yeah.
we get into like the meat of the episode where we talk about like the books that, or we talk about their book, then we get into the books I love. The show has changed a little bit since then. That was almost 7 years ago. So some things have shifted, but mostly I still do interviews. So now, like, it's that the old format was one episode where we talked to the guest about the books they loved. Then the next episode was a book club episode. So we
Okay.
had two book club episodes a month, basically, two guests, two episodes. Now we still do that one and one book club and just interview, but there's only one of those each month. So whoever comes on the first week of the month comes back the last week of the month to do a book club episode. And then in the
Oh,
middle are those interviews like with Jason DeLeon, where it's really more of someone talking in detail about their book.
okay.
So that's sort of how the show breaks down. That change happened because I had the twins and I was
Yeah.
doing 6 episodes before and I wanted to bring it in. Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
It sure is. And I'm an
You know?
independent podcast and
Uh-huh.
I went to a network for just a little bit, but for like a year and a half, but otherwise it's just been me. I do have an amazing editor and an amazing assistant now. But when I made that switch, when I had the twins, it was just me all by myself. And so it was like, I can't actually maintain this level
I'm
of
just picturing you because
output.
I know what it's like to have newborn twins.
Yeah.
And so I would have, one in one arm and one like flying over my shoulder. And
Yeah.
then my 2-year-old at the time would have been who knows what. And
Exactly.
yeah, it's not exactly conducive to a schedule
Yeah.
or
No.
anything else.
No.
But what's interesting, I love the flexing of the format. It reminds me a little bit of the shit no one tells you about writing, that
Love
podcast.
them. I've done
Don't
that
you
show
lo-
twice. And then I also had
Mhm.
Bianca on. She was one of the earlier authors I had on
Okay.
the show when I just started doing the like straight up like interviews about the
Yeah.
book for her yellow book. If you want to make God laugh.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, because I think, well, tell me how you feel about this. When I talk to authors who want to start, and I want to ask you about all this, but podcast, Substack, Patreon, which was so funny that you have all three.
I sure do.
Because they come up often. Again, I'm just going to feel like I'm repeating myself by saying all the time, but it really does because I think people are just trying to find, especially in the author space, they're trying to find their way.
Yep.
And they're trying to figure out, well, how do I do something that's a little bit different where I don't want to just talk about my book all the time.
Right.
Right. How do I engage people so they like get to know who I am outside of being an author, which to me is the best marketing there is.
Yeah.
Right. If I hear someone
Yeah.
on your show as an example, and you're just having a conversation with them,
Yeah.
and I'm intrigued by what they're saying,
Yeah.
I don't need them to promote their book. They've just
No.
promoted their book. I'm going to go buy it.
What I talk about a lot, not necessarily to authors, but to other people in the book space. So whether it's like a publicist or an editor or whatever, and I have said it to authors as well, but I say this a lot. The least interesting thing at a book tour, at the book tour stop, is the book.
Bingo.
Like, I don't want
Yeah.
to sit in a bookstore with 20, 100, 6 people and have you tell me about a sentence on page 72 from a book that came out 36 minutes ago that I have not read. I'm
Okay.
already here in the room. I have driven in traffic in Los Angeles at 7 p.m. on a Tuesday to come into this room. I already am probably going to buy the book because I already drove. Like, there's so many book events I don't go to. So I've made the choice, right? The commitment to come to support this event. I'm probably going to buy the book. Why are you talking to me about the details of a book that I have not read?
Let's take a quick break.
If you're just getting started on your self-publishing journey, it can be overwhelming to consider all of the tasks in front of you. Even if you've been listening to podcasts and reading and watching videos on how to self-publish, putting all the bits and pieces together while worrying about whether you're doing it correctly can be quite stressful. It helps to have a clear list of action steps so you're confident in exactly what you should be doing first, second, and third. Luckily, I've outlined all of this for you in my program, Publish the Damn Book Already. And for a limited time, as a podcast listener, you can get 25% off with code AUTHOR25. This course provides you with a step-by-step blueprint to a published book that is indistinguishable in quality from a book published by the big guys, while saving you time, money, and excessive handfuls of stress-relieving salt and vinegar potato chips. We tackle everything from how to find an incredible editor to partnering with a top-notch and reasonably priced cover designer to uploading to distribution channels like Amazon, bookshop.org, and bookstores. If this is going to be the year you finally get your book published, head on over to publishaprofitable.com/publish and get started. Remember to use code AUTHOR25 to get 25% off. Okay, so controversial statement. Can we talk about when readers have an event and they read a chapter from the book?
So when I do book talks with authors, I usually tell them I don't want to read from the book. I don't want you to read from the book.
Right.
Sometimes if the author is like extremely well known and people love them and are coming to hear them read, I will encourage them to do 2 minutes. I'm barely anything.
You know who did that? And I think we both went to see him. Nana Kwame.
Oh yeah. Well, I sat with, are you in LA?
No, I'm in Phoenix, but he was in Phoenix.
Yeah. So I actually did his event with him in LA.
Oh, you did?
And he was like, I think I'm going to read. And I was like, okay, well, what are you going to read?
For Chain Gang, right?
And he was like, I'm going to read some from the introduction or whatever, the prologue. And I was like, okay, how much are you going to read? And he was like, 3 pages. And I was like, okay, fine, but you better sell it.
So that's so funny because this is an exception in my book. Yeah. I am going on record. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm saying I don't want to hear someone read a chapter from their book.
No.
Because I can go home and read that later. I want to get to know you as a person, as an author. Yeah. I want to hear about your process. I want to know a little bit about you. I want to see what your personality is, all of that. There are 2 exceptions. One is the one you mentioned, if they're very well known and people want to hear it in their voice and that sort of thing. The other is if an author is really nervous, if they've never done an event, if they're just getting their feet wet in doing an event, sometimes the easiest thing for them to do is to read because they don't have to worry about having the right words or whatnot.
Yes.
So when Nana Kwame was for the Chain Gang, oh my gosh, he read a lot, Tracy.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, a lot more than 3 pages. But here's what I'm here to tell you. It worked because he got into all the characters.
Yeah, he did like a full performance when we did it.
It was a full performance.
Yes. I think if you're going to do that, you have a little more leeway. I will tell you, so to push back against if you're very nervous, I think it is a mistake to read if you are extremely nervous, because what happens is the book becomes a crutch and you hide behind the book and it feels really comfortable there. And I hate to tell people, I don't hate to, I love to tell people what to do, but first time authors, people who are nervous about public speaking, unfortunately for you, you have to find a way to get over it. The reason you're on a book tour is to sell your books. To sell yourself. Okay. I know people don't like to hear that. I know it's unpopular.
No, and I don't disagree with you at all.
But if you feel like you must read, my one tip and a thing that I do is to talk to your moderator and have them cue you up for a section of the book in the middle of the talk. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll talk to an author for 20 minutes and I'll lead them to a part of the book that either I know they want to read or I want them to read. And then we'll talk about what you're going to hear. And then I'll say, read these 4 paragraphs, and really curate it so that people understand. I don't know if did you read Come and Get It by Kylie Reid?
No.
Okay. It's fantastic.
Great. Don't keep,
sorry.
Don't
It's
keep doing
it,
Tracy.
It's great. Anyways, she she and I did a book event together, and there were like 4 paragraphs in her book that were so funny, but out of context. If she had started the event and been like, these 4 paragraphs, you'd be like, this is stupid. But
Yeah.
I was explaining to the audience, like, this is what's going to happen. And like, it's a scene. And she lists all these items that this girl bought for her dorm room from Target, and like, listen to how she writes about it. And then Kylie reads like a pillow that says no place like home, a pink fuzzy this and this and that. And it lands with the audience, and it actually
Absolutely.
showcases the work, as opposed to you just like sitting down and being like, okay, page 72, Martha was mad at her mother. I'm going to take you there. And then it's like, I'm so mad at my mom. And you're just like, what
Right.
is
And no
this?
one really, it's out of
Who's
context.
Martha? Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Exactly.
So I feel like if you feel
Yeah.
that you must read, you have to queue it up. It's better later into the event, and it's better if it's part of the conversation and not just like, okay, now I'm going to read.
Well, you raise a great, great point, which is that a lot of people, specifically new authors, don't even think to have a moderator or a conversation partner.
Yeah.
And the reality is, you can just bring a friend with you to be your conversation
Yes.
partner. And that takes so much, I think, of the weight off,
Yeah.
where I see authors get really nervous. And I get it, because I was at one point too. I mean, I was not always comfortable, with public speaking.
Right.
And they're up there alone.
Yeah.
Right. So they're just
Yeah.
standing there, and if they have 2 people staring at them, they're nervous because it's like, oh my God, there's only 2 people.
Yeah.
Why are there only 2 people here? If they have 150 people staring at them, they're super nervous because of that. And
Right.
so what ends up happening is, and I completely agree with what you're saying, they use the book as a crutch, almost to the point where they don't even make eye contact with the audience. Right. So the book
Yeah.
is up in front of their face or over here, but they're
Yeah.
not. Did you ever
Yeah.
see the episode of, did you ever watch Friends?
Not really.
Okay.
I've seen episodes, but I won't.
You're
I don't think
the
I'll
fourth
know.
person who I've been like, did you ever see? Because I
You
know
love
every
Friends.
episode
Okay.
backwards, forwards, and inside out. And so I use it as, between that and New Girl, that'll be like, did you ever see this episode? And so when people say no, I have to quickly pivot. But there's an episode in Friends where Ross is trying really hard. He's reading his dissertation, and they're like, you're not making eye contact. And so he kind of goes, he reads, and then he does this like quick eye contact
quick
thing.
stare. Yeah.
Yeah. So I completely agree. And I'm curious what else, being so immersed in the space, what you've seen people do that was really creative in terms of, like, I know you two mourned the loss of I'm still mourning it. I might just try to bring it back, the voiceovers on Instagram.
Oh, well, you can still voice over, can't
No,
you?
you could still do it. But remember when it was a thing, like it was a trend for a while.
Oh, I still do. I literally just made a reel today that has voiceover.
Does it have voiceover? I haven't done it in so long. And I feel like
Yeah.
you're inspiring me to start doing it again, because I loved that.
I love it.
And I think I loved the challenge of it, because it's not as easy.
No, it's
You gotta
really hard.
hit that timing right.
I know.
Or-
It took me like an hour to get it, but I got it, and I was like, don't change a thing. Yeah. What are some creative things that I've seen authors do that I've been impressed with? I mean, one of the things I always am like really impressed with is when people actually like have, this is going to sound silly, but actually have like friends in the space, like people, like authors who are like well liked by other authors, who are in
Yeah.
community with other people. I think that always really helps me. It helps me to figure out what kind of book, like what the book might be like, and I know that for some people it's like your debut, you don't know a lot of people, but I'm also really impressed with people who then reach out and are like, I'm a big fan of X, Y, and Z that you've written. Like, I think that's the thing that I always look at.
Yeah.
I don't know that necessarily means the book is going to be good or not, but it does help me to orient the author in my mind, because there are so many authors and there are so many books. I think also like when authors, I don't like a cover reveal. Like a lot of that stuff is silly to me. I'm not into it. I don't think it's necessary. I don't like what is a cover reveal? It's the same if you just post the cover on your Instagram versus if you have a video and you like pull up a piece of paper and say like, it's a reveal. Like
Sure.
They're both a reveal. I've not seen it and now I've seen it.
Sure.
So like to me, that doesn't like make,
Yeah.
do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I do. One of the kind of videos that I do love is so like, it pulls on my heartstrings, my cold, dead heart, is when authors open their book and see their galleys or whatever for the
I knew
first
you were
time.
going to say that.
I do love those. I love those.
The unboxing.
The unboxing. The first one, not when they do it again for the finished copy. I'm
Right.
like, you've seen it. Okay.
Right.
We've all seen it. I have it. Okay. It's fine.
I
But
think
that
it's
first one.
Let's take a quick break.
I want to take a super quick break to ask you, have you ever wondered where authors get great professional mock-ups of their books without spending hours on Photoshop or hiring a designer? In less than 10 seconds, Mockup Shots puts your book into over 1,200 amazing settings. And now, for a limited time, they are including their exclusive video mockup system. Mockup Shots is what I've used for years to create 3D mockups of my own book covers and my author's book covers, as well as professional attention-grabbing images that are great for social media. No technical know-how required. Mockup Shots usually costs over $200, but I have a special offer for you. It's faster, has more features, more images, and is getting better every day. They're celebrating this new and improved Mockup Shots by offering a 60% discount on lifetime access with lifetime updates. It's a great way to get an unheard of price on a product that will get eyes on your book, increased sales, and that you will end up using all the time. You can get this limited time offer with the link in the show notes. And now back to regularly scheduled programming. Yeah, it is kind of a heart because it's never there's something in their eyes
Yeah.
that you can't fake.
Yeah. Especially when it's like a debut. I feel like sometimes when authors who have like 10 books are like, oh,
Right.
I'm like, okay.
We know how you're going to feel about this. It's going to
You do this. This is your third book this week. Like
Right.
Stephen King, I don't need to see you be so excited to see your next book. As far as like things outside of social media, I do think when people like really do think about what they want their book tour to be like, aside from just like sitting in a bookstore with neon lights on, when they really do think about who's in the room and what it could feel like and what's possible, those are always the best. I just like when it feels a little bit special, I think sometimes authors forget that, art is entertainment. And I think they forget sometimes that they have a responsibility to entertain people, even when it's not the book. And I know that people are like, well, I'm not an entertainer and I'm not a performer and all of those things, except for sort of you become a public figure, whether you like it or not, when you want people to consume your art. Like, I know it's a very unpopular opinion, and it's very interesting because it's an unpopular opinion only in the book space. I come from the theater world. So I have friends who are actors and actresses who obviously those are forward-facing people, but directors and choreographers, and even they understand that when they are out in public in that capacity at opening night of their show or whatever, that there's some expectation of a performance. And I think that authors forget that. And so when authors are thinking about who am I? What does it mean for me to be in the world? Who are the people I'm inviting into this space to hear me read or to be part of my Instagram or Substack community? Why these people? What do they want? What will make them feel taken care of? Who are the other people I want to be in community? All of those things, when I can tell an author's thinking about those things, whether it is an unboxing video or a Substack post or whatever, that always impresses me. When I'm like, I get who you are and I get who you want us to be to each other.
Why do you think it's so different? Because I've often contemplated this. It is different in the book space compared to other creative spaces. And it's almost in my experience like authors are more cerebral about it all.
I think because it's like I think even painters or like visual artists are better at the performance because they understand that to see the thing requires an effort from your audience. They have to come to your art show. They have to and I think authors think because the thing, like maybe you go to a bookstore, but maybe it just gets delivered to your front door and it comes to you and it's a private thing between you and the book. And so I think that authors think that they're not supposed to be part of that thing. And I also think because, and this is again, don't get me canceled, I think publishing lacks a lot of imagination when it comes to this stuff. And so I think authors aren't encouraged to think about this stuff. They're encouraged to think about like book sales or like, who do you want to be in conversation with? But they're not encouraged to think, why are we doing a book tour? Like, not just to sell books, but like, why are you going to Phoenix? Why are you going to Savannah, Georgia? Why not Atlanta? Why not Tempe? Like these things that people, this like real passion for the reason folks are gathering is missing in publishing in general.
Do you think this is actually something I wanted to talk with you about. Do you feel like that's something that sort of emanates from the top? And when by the top in this instance, I mean the traditional, like the big five, because we've been hearing for years and years and years that it's just the same old, same old. No one's, I remember Carly Waters lamenting at the end of 2023 that she really thought that in 2023, some of these big five publishers would partner with some of these influencers, specifically on TikTok, because Book Talk was so huge.
Right.
And it didn't happen because the sort of the thinking in the traditional space was, this is how we've always done it. And so therefore we're going to continue to do it this way.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think publishing like the big five and even the smaller, but still bigger publishers have a real lack of imagination. I definitely think that's true. I mean, they do partner with TikTokers and Bookstagrammers or whatever, but their budgets are low. They don't invest in it. And they might as well not in some ways. It's just
Absolutely.
like, okay.
Well, to your point, I don't think they think about what the goal is, right? I don't think
Yeah.
it's intentional. And I think that on the author side, the author feels like, just put me on tour.
Yeah.
Because that's what sells books and that's what makes me a quote real author. Put me on tour and get me on the Today Show.
Right. And I think those things do sell books, but also again, if you go on your book tour and you sit there and you read your book and like are boring and talk about sentences and stuff, people aren't going to buy your book because maybe there's 2 or 3 writers in the room, but there's probably a lot more just readers, people who just like a book, live near the bookstore. And so if you're like talking to the you in the audience, not you, Elizabeth, but you author talking to yourself, you're not reaching the right people.
Right.
So I think I think some of the blame for sure goes to publishing in general. I don't think that they do a good job of explaining how these things work or how they should work or how they envision them working. But I also think authors sometimes feel like, I did my job, I wrote the book, like, isn't that enough? And my answer is it's definitely not.
Definitely not. And this is a challenging thing because my thing is, when authors say, well, I hear a lot, I don't care if it makes money. I just want to do it, which I don't know how I feel about that because I feel like in most cases that's a lie.
Sure.
And it's just a defense mechanism of like, well, when it doesn't, I'm just setting my expectations really low right now so that when, if it doesn't do well, I won't be disappointed. But I don't think anybody would be unhappy if it made a little bit of extra money, even if all you do is donate it, even if you don't technically need it, right? You can do good things with that income. But I think that in many cases, authors they will say like, well, I don't want to. Like, I don't want to do the tour. I don't want to stand up in front of people. I don't want to speak. I don't want to this. I don't want to do a podcast. I don't want to do any of it. I will sit back here in the corner.
Right.
And I want somebody else to go sell my book.
Yeah.
And my response to that is always, okay, but it's probably not going to work the way that you want it to work.
Yeah. I don't think that works great for most people.
No.
I think there are some people, but most of those people probably came up in publishing in a really different time than now, So I think like there are models, I've heard people be like, well, I don't think like, whoever Catcher in the Rye guy like had to do this. It's like, yeah, but you didn't even have like a cell phone.
We didn't even have one.
Yeah. Like I think he wrote with like a quill pen, like Shakespeare wasn't promoting himself. Well, actually he was doing all the shows, but whatever, it's fine. It's
right.
Fine.
Exactly.
I also think in the olden days, we can take it back pretty far, recent history. Writers were public figures and they understood that in a way that I think some writers, like James Baldwin, he was going to give you an interview. Okay. He was not above talking about his work or talking about the world. And oftentimes a lot of the clips that we know and love of James Baldwin or Toni Morrison aren't actually just them talking about the work. It's them talking about the world. And that's why I say that the book is the least interesting thing in the room. If you want to go to your book tour and talk about nerd rope for an hour, I love this. Right?
You're going to buy everything that person
I'll
has
buy
ever
everything.
Written.
But everyone in the room will be so refreshed because the other part about a book event, and this is a thing that I work to push back against for my entire career in the space, is that book events are extremely pretentious. A lot of people who read books regularly would never define themselves as a reader. Just like, your friend who runs 2 miles a day and they're like, no, I'm not a runner. because I've never run a marathon or something. That's how readers are. Readers are
Mhm.
like, oh, I only read 5 books a year, so I'm not really a reader. And so one of the things that is really disarming and great for authors to do is to understand that that's who your audience is and to talk to them about Nerd Rope. Right?
Right.
Like I ask authors on my show about their favorite snacks and beverages, A, because I love it, but B, because I know it connects them to people who maybe aren't interested in the book. Like not everyone's going to be interested in human smuggling at the Mexico border, like Jason De Leon's book. It's a fantastic book. But
I am
it was
now,
also
but-
great to hear him talk about his love of Jesmyn Ward and how
Mhm.
her writing influenced his writing to the point that one of the people in his book, because everybody has pseudonyms, he named Jesmyn. Like that's such a cool thing. And if you're just sitting there talking about what's in your book and you're not selling yourself and the story and not even selling yourself, but just like being a human in the
It's
world.
the connection piece.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think it's not, we've been saying now more than ever for the past 4 years, people
Yeah.
are desiring connection. It's still true in my world, that
I
connection
think
piece.
that's true always. I don't think it's a now more than ever. I think it's an always. I think people want to feel like they're seen, like they're
Yeah.
heard, like they're alive, like they matter. And I think like when authors go into these spaces and it's just either it's just like I don't want to do this, or it's like buy my book, buy my book, buy my book.
Oh.
Neither of those things feel authentic.
Right.
And that's why I'm like, tell me about your favorite recipe. Like I would sit for an hour and hear an author talk about what they made for dinner. Like if they were hosting a dinner party, what would you make? Or what's the movie that if you could, whatever it is, like you can
Mhm.
talk about anything at these events. You just have to talk and be available for people to find a way into you and your work. It's
Yeah.
very simple actually, if people allow themselves to be vulnerable in those ways.
Well, and what's interesting to me is you can go into a bookstore, or when you go into a bookstore, right? Then it really does become about the sale of the book, right? The
Yeah.
book has to grab your attention. But when you go to an event and you meet someone face to face, or you hear someone and you're seeing them face to face speak, that's a different level of connect. Now you're selling yourself.
Yeah.
You're not selling the book.
Right.
And I don't mean that in a not so great way, right?
Yeah.
You're either going to make that connection with people or you aren't,
Yeah.
right? If someone came to an event and you talked at the whole event about your love of Nerd Rope and they are just a diehard, all of the chemicals in our food
Yes.
are killing us, you're not going to make that connection,
Right.
right? But
Right.
somebody like me is going to go, what the heck? What's a nerd? How, what?
Right. Right. Or honestly, or you might make that connection because that person will be like, holy cow, that woman was so obsessed with this thing. And I'm so obsessed with food safety. And like, I would like, sometimes I will go to an event and be like, I don't even want to read this book, but I'm so in love with this person. I'm going to, even though I disagree. Like there's so many ways to connect. with
Because you
people.
respect the passion.
Exactly.
Right?
Right. And
But-
you respect just like the person being authentic in the space with you.
Absolutely.
So
But
I
the-
think like you can't predict who's going to like you and who's not going to like you. You sort of have to just go in and do your thing. And I know a lot of people don't like me. I know I'm an acquired taste for a lot of people, and that's totally fine. But there are people who are going to find me and who are going to like me. And I just go into the world trying to find those people.
Them.
Right. And then
Yeah.
I also find the haters to motivate me,
They're fun. They're fun. I love a good, not a pile-on, not into that, but I love a good 1-star, completely
Yeah.
ridiculous review.
Yeah.
I
I
will
always
have fun
say
with those
hating,
all day.
like talking shit about books is good for books.
Yeah,
That's one of my go-to lines.
it really is.
It's great for books. It's great. It's great.
It's okay. So speaking of books that have sort of can attract you or interest you, even if it's unexpected. Are there any of those that come to mind where you just, maybe it's not something you would have picked up on your own, but somebody recommended it and you read it and you were like, oh my God.
I mean, yes. So I'm not a huge romance reader, but
Okay.
I loved 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. I loved it. Loved it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's one that I loved. Sometimes I really like nonfiction a lot. So sometimes I will pick up a book. Okay, here's a good example.
Okay.
This book is called What If We Get It Right? It's by Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson, who is a marine biologist, policy advocate, climate justice person. And I was familiar with her work, and I really liked an essay that I had read that she'd written in another book. And she had a new book coming out, and I saw it. It's kind of thick. Okay. It's like kind of a
Okay.
chunky book.
Okay.
And I was like, I'm interested in the climate, but like it's 500 pages. Let me see if it's on audio. So I go to audio. It is 22 hours on audio. And I was like, I don't
Wow.
care about climate change this much. I don't. Like that's a lot. That's a whole day. Okay. I don't care. We're all going to die. Like whatever. I start the audiobook because I was like, we'll see. I heard her on an interview on someone else's show, and I was like, we'll see. This book changed my life. It has changed the way that I see the world. It has changed what I think is possible about climate change. It has
Really?
completely like shifted my like inner being. Okay. This book, like, I'm like, oh, I just got a compost bit. Like, I am a different person.
Well, when you
having
figure
read
out
that
how to
book.
use that, can you please follow up with me? Because
Well, I
I've
take
been,
it to my farmer's market and I dump it, and then they take it to the farm, and then I can get compost from them. at,
okay.
like,
So
intervals.
so you found a little bit of a fun workaround because
Yeah.
I have about had it. I've
Okay.
almost given up, but moving on. I don't want to digress.
Yes. Anyways, so this is a book that I maybe would have liked and was on
Mhm.
my radar, but it wasn't until I actually like went into the book, and 22 hours was not enough because the book is the book is transcripts of interviews she's done, but the audiobook, you get to hear the interview. So it's like 20 mini podcast episodes. That's why it's so long.
Okay.
And it's great. It is great. It is thrilling. It is like life affirming. It is all of those things. So that was a book that really surprised me, not because
Mhm.
I didn't think I would be interested, but because I didn't think I would be that interested.
That interested.
Yeah. I read that book, Annie Bot this year by Sierra Greer. That was a surprise. It was like, it's like about a
yes.
robot girlfriend or
Yes.
something. I
Yes.
really like that.
I remembered the author's name, but not the book name, which is very odd because it's usually the reverse.
Yeah. It's a pseudonym for her, actually. She's like
Oh,
a
is it
YA.
really?
Yeah, she
Okay.
got some YA books in her real name.
Okay. All right.
But so that one was sort of a surprise. Usually like genre fiction is a surprise for me. Like True Grit. Do you know that book? It's old. It's by
What?
Charles Portis. It's been a movie twice.
I was just going to say, I know the movie, but okay.
The book is so good. It's like a
Really?
1960s Western. But it takes
Oh,
place
you just lost me
a
at
lot.
Western.
Okay. I'd never read a Western before.
Okay.
Phenomenal.
Like Lonesome Dove, if I die without ever reading Lonesome Dove, I'm okay.
I actually do want to try that book because I've heard
I
it's
know
actually
it is
worth
a
it,
classic.
but
I know.
I haven't gotten there yet. This is much shorter.
Okay.
It's very short. It's like 200 pages. And it's sort of like a send up of the genre a little bit. And it's got a teenage girl as the lead. It takes place in like 1870s, maybe Arkansas. It's really, really cute. It's really
Wow.
fun.
Okay.
It is, teenage girl among like bad cowboy kind of guys, like trying to get revenge with these cowboys.
Your setup of this is
It's just like
legendary.
it's like in the tradition of those other books about teenage girls
Sure.
who are like badass girl. Like it's like Katniss, right? Like it's like
Okay,
in that
but-
same kind of thing.
But back then.
But back in the day. But that same kind of like tough, badass girl who's breaking the rules.
all I
Matilda.
can see is like not Laura Ingalls Wilder, but who played the Nancy. I don't know. You're too young for this.
Oh.
Did you ever see the Little House on the Prairie?
Yeah, I'm familiar with that. But again, wasn't really
That's all
my
I can
thing.
see is the
Yeah.
character, the cousin who's like, anyway, I don't know why.
Oh.
It's certainly been a while.
It
since
probably
I've
is like that. It's definitely,
Yeah.
she's tough, girl. She's tough as nails. Anyways, I loved it. But that's a book that really surprised me. My friend
Yeah.
recommended it and I was like, whoa, I love this book.
Yeah. There's just not enough time.
No,
right? There's so much. And I think I'm often curious when I meet readers who are like, just love books so much and love story and love all of that around it. Like, is it something that really helped you understand you, or is it something that you enjoyed living an experience that maybe you didn't get to live in your actual life? I mean, is it all of the above? Like, what is your,
like, why do I like reading?
yeah, like what is your the deep why behind why you love books?
I mean, I do love a good story.
Yeah.
I love a good story. I like good things. I know
Mm.
people say that about themselves. Probably everybody thinks they have good taste. I don't know that I have good taste, but what I do know is that I love a good experience, whether it's a great
Yeah.
meal,
Yeah.
whether it's a good movie, a good play, a good book, a good song, whatever. Like I will listen to a song and turn to my husband and be like, that's a perfect song. Like that is perfect music. And I think the flip side of that is I also love to criticize things. I love to be like, this is my favorite movie, but this scene should have been cut, right? Like I get a thrill and a joy from reading something that I think is amazing and being like, they said she was wearing a dress, but then later they said she had on a shirt. Like that to me is like, I gotcha. Even if I love the book, like I love criticism and like critique and gossip and talking about things. So as much as I love a book, I love the like communal experience of talking about a book with other people, of pushing a book into someone else's hand. The greatest compliment is when someone says, you told me to read this book and it was amazing. Like, I'm like,
Oh,
yes.
right?
I'm like, sing to me, baby. Like
Mhm.
that is the perfect song. So there's a lot of like that stuff is why I love to read. I love when someone gets it right. I mean, I read a lot of books that I don't think are very good because I read a
Well, I
lot
was
of
going to
books
ask
in
you, will you
general.
ever just stop in the middle? Like,
Oh
what's your
yeah. Yeah,
philosophy
yeah,
on
yeah. I
just,
do.
oh, you
Yeah.
do? And you just
Yeah.
say this, no.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Last year I judged a literary prize, and so I had to.
Okay.
And I've gotten even better at it now. But sometimes I'll read a book and be like, this is so bad. I want to finish it so I can talk about it.
Oh, that's funny.
Because
See,
my rule is I review everything on my Instagram that I read that I finish, but I
yeah.
won't review something that I don't finish. So if I
Okay.
don't finish a book, you'll probably never hear me talk about it again because I didn't finish it. I didn't like it enough to finish it, or it wasn't the right book in the right moment. But if I finish your book, I will tell the world what I think about it. So sometimes I'm like, I have to bitch about this book. Like, this is so bad. And sometimes I won't know that I'm hating it as much until I get to the end. And then I'm like, oh my God, that was awful. Why did I do that?
See, I'm one of those weirdos where like it is really, really hard for me to not finish a book, even if it's horrible or if I
Oh,
deem it to be horrible. I
yeah.
don't know. It's like I have to finish it. And
No,
also, I feel like I keep hoping it'll redeem itself.
no, it never will.
It never does,
It never
right?
will.
But
No, it never
I
will.
do have that hope. And
No.
I just it's like I feel like I'm leaving it alone. Like
Mm.
I don't know. I just want to
Well, you can always go back to. That's what I
you
tell myself.
absolutely can. In fact, funny story. Have you read You Could Make This Place Beautiful by Maggie Smith?
Yes, the one about her marriage.
Yes.
Yeah, I did read it. I
So
read it last year.
I thought this was the most remarkable story. I heard someone, and I don't remember where, or I certainly don't remember who, but this woman had started reading it. And if I remember correctly, it was kind of a famous person because it was set on a well-known, I don't know, something. And this individual had started reading it and was just like, I don't like it. Like, this is not for me. This is not good. And then fast forward however long, she went through her own divorce and
Mm.
something compelled her to just pick it up again. And she said, this is magic.
Yeah.
This book is absolutely brilliant because it's what you said, right place, right time. Sometimes we're just not, it's not for us right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like it's better to like if you think something might be okay, but you're just not into it,
Mhm.
I think it's better to put it down for when it
I-
like is okay for you versus if you're reading something and you're like, this is bad. I hate this. I understand finishing that right away because it's not going to ever be right for you. Right. If
It's
you're
not
like,
ever
the
gonna be
writing is
right.
so bad. This is
Right.
making my brain spin. Or like, because I read a lot of nonfiction, sometimes I'm just like, I'm not interested in a whole book about this. Like the introduction was enough for me. I got the idea.
You got the whole, you know where it's going. It's like a Hallmark movie.
Exactly.
You watch those because you know exactly that there's going to be a happy ending.
Exactly.
And it's the holidays, so I've started my like I'll see them all. Yeah, it's it's kind of a problem. Is there a book that you'll read over and over, like as in more than once, not necessarily in succession, but maybe once a year, once every couple years?
I don't have a regular reread,
No.
but I am, as a child, I loved Charlotte's Web, and I just started reading that out loud chapter by chapter to my kids, like one chapter a night. And I reread it like a few years ago just for myself before I had kids. So that's one that I've reread a few times. I am not a habitual rereader though. I do not
Okay.
have like a comfort book or like a book that I return to.
Sure.
No.
Okay. I only have two, and it's not habitual in the sense that there's a timeline on it. But out of all the books I've ever read, it's interesting because I'll watch a movie and clearly I'll watch a show like Friends over and
Yeah.
over and
Yeah.
over. But I won't go back and reread books.
What are the two?
The Alchemist
Oh.
and Anna Karenina.
Oh my gosh. I hate The Alchemist so much, Elizabeth.
Stop it right
I
now.
do.
If I didn't already like you so much,
do.
I would hit end on this.
So my brother, who is my best friend, he loves that book. Actually, both my brothers do.
Okay.
So I can love people who love the book. But
Okay. Well, I hope so.
I hate it.
Because I am unabashed in my love of that
Also,
book.
when you reread Anna Karenina, we did that for book club a few years ago. Do you reread the whole thing? Like you go deep back into the agriculture stuff? You're into that, the farm? Okay.
Yeah.
That's where,
And for a
that's where it
minute,
was hard
I thought
for me.
I was going to, well, at one point, I challenged myself to read War and Peace, which is really just a lot of war and then a lot of peace and back and forth,
okay.
right?
That makes sense.
And then I thought, well, I'm going to read this again because I felt like I didn't really get the nuances. And I started in the second time and thought, I can't do this again. Like I had to keep referring to the map and the table of characters. And it was like, no, but Anna Karenina, I get some, it's like The Alchemist. I get something different from it every time I read it. And I've read The Alchemist way more times than I've read Anna Karenina because that's
way
a
less
tome.
pages.
Oh my God. I can read The Alchemist in a day and a half, and I'm not a fast reader.
Me neither.
As much as I read, I'm not a fast reader. So tell me why you hate The Alchemist.
I just found it to be so like not inspiring to me.
Really?
Like, follow your dreams. Like, okay. Thanks. What are the other pages for? Like, I've heard that before.
Like you can boil this whole book down to 3 words.
Yeah.
Follow your dreams.
I feel like people like act like it was like it's like mind blowing. And I'm just like, yeah, he followed his little path in life.
But he's every one of the characters he meets.
Okay.
I'm not trying to convince you at all.
You won't be able to. This is truly one of my most hated books. Like I really dislike the book.
Okay.
So
it's okay.
You won't. I know. That's what's great about books. There's books for
I'm
everybody.
not like that invested in it. And you know what else I love about me loving it and you hating it is both of those things can be true at the same time and fine.
Yeah, totally.
And it doesn't really speak to like whether the book is good or bad. I was talking to somebody else this morning and I said, Picasso, I don't get him.
Right.
I don't get his pieces. I don't get why they're so valuable. To me, it feels like a 9-year-old or a 4-year-old. I don't know. It just doesn't feel. But people who are very into Picasso, they glean something different.
Yeah.
That is not, I guess, not common for a typical person to just be able to do.
I guess. I mean, that's what's great about art. That's why there is art, so that we have things to debate and talk about.
Debate. God, just give me something to debate that's like healthy.
Yeah.
Okay, last question. This is a dangerous one for me to ask you, but what are you reading right now?
You've caught me on a great day.
Oh,
I am between books.
Okay.
Sort of.
What'd you read last?
Okay, so this morning I finished our November book club pick, which is Luster by Raven Leilani. Juicy.
I keep hearing about that.
Juicy. Really loved it. Had a great time with it. Big, messy book. Very divisive. Some people love it. Some people hate it. I am currently listening on audio to Madoff, which is about Bernie Madoff. It's called like Madoff, the last interview. And I don't understand not one thing about money. Okay. I don't know what a securities is. I don't know what an S&P is. I don't know not one thing. And quite frankly, most of this book is going over my head because I think a lot of what Bernie Madoff did was so basic, but also I have no clue what this man, Richard Behar, is talking about. But why I'm sticking with it is because in between every chapter on the audiobook, there was actual audio of Richard Behar talking to Bernie Madoff from prison. Fantastic.
That's
it's like 3 minutes every hour. Like these 3 minutes.
I'm here for these 3 minutes.
I'm here. I still don't understand what he did. I guess he took people's money and then didn't invest it at all. But he said he was investing it, but I'm not sure what he said he was investing it in. Like the author keeps being like, if anyone had checked the statement, and I'm like, but what are they checking for? What is it supposed to say? And he keeps being like, it's a regular checking account. And I'm like, a really regular, like mine? like mine. And then it's like, so like, I'm really struggling with the actual, like what is happening here because I keep calling things regular that I'm like my Chase account, because Bernie had a Chase account, this 703 account, but I don't know if 703 is a kind of account or the last digits of it. Like
that's way over my head too. Oh, I see what you're saying. Or that's okay. Way over my head too.
Way over my head, but I'm enjoying it.
I think that's an interesting thing that authors do when they record their audiobooks is sometimes they'll have a little brief thing, a little intermission, if you will, between chapters that gives someone who's actually read the physical book and reason to also be interested in the audio because there's a little bit more to it.
Yeah, for sure. So I like this book, but I also don't like, if this did not have those audio bits, I would have DNF'd a long time ago because I have no clue, not a single clue.
I'm definitely going to check out Luster. I think you're the second person who's mentioned that. And I've seen it. I've seen the cover. I can see the cover in my brain right now.
Luster's
like I've seen it in different
and I
places.
think I'm going to start The Safe Keep, which is that book. I don't know, but it's
okay. I'll look it up and put it in the notes.
It was up for a Booker Award this year. It didn't win. The awards just came out like while we were talking.
This is the worst segment because I really rarely, the only one that keeps coming up is All Fours by Miranda July.
I think I'll hate it, so I'm not going to read it.
Do you really?
Yes.
I haven't started it yet. It arrived after 4 people said I didn't want to like it and I loved it. I thought,
people like it. People really like it. I don't know about you, but because I read so much and because I have this rule that if I finish something, I have to talk about it, I really kind of know my taste. I know what I like and I know what I'm going to like. And I am searching to like most things that I read. And so a book like that, I just don't think I'm going to like it. So to like spend time with something I don't think I'm going to like, to either put it down or to finish it and then have to be like, I didn't really like it. I just like, I have trusted friends who tell like who I go to, who I'm like, you've read like X, Y, and Z. Well, I like it. And they'll tell me, and you know, that goes a long way because they're like trusted friends, not strangers, but like my book people. And most of my trusted friends have been like, I don't think so for you. And I'm like, really? Because I have it. I can read it. They're like, I don't think so.
Okay.
So I'm staying away from it. People love it. Most people love it.
Yeah. It seems to be very, it's triggering something.
Yeah. It's definitely doing something.
I think it's my curiosity that has me.
Yeah. I mean, you should definitely
enjoy
read
it. But
yeah.
Well, thank you. I am so glad Jackson connected us.
Me too.
And I will put everything in the show notes and onward. Now I'm going to go binge all 300 and God, you have a lot of episodes, but
I know it's like almost actually 400 because some of them have different number systems. I think actually tomorrow's episode, I think is 400.
Is it really? I did notice that you don't have a numbering system as of late.
I do. Every episode has a number, but the bonus episodes don't. And then I used to do those short stack episodes. They had their own, and we did a bonus series on banned books. So those are all kind of in the feed. But I think Jason is 345, maybe. Tomorrow's episode is 345. Close. Yeah, tomorrow's episode is 345.
Okay.
But technically it's 400, which I don't know. Got all
well, I intend to listen to the vast majority of them. So I guess I need to take a road trip.
Yes, you do. Or speed me up. Put it on 2.0.
There you go. There you go.
Really
That'll
fast.
work. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you. This has been great.
Thank you. This was so great. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, this is your friendly reminder to follow or subscribe, leave a quick review, and share it with someone you know has a great story or message, but isn't sure what to do next. Also, remember to check out publishaprofitablebook.com for book writing resources and tips, and to see all the ways we can work together to get your book out into the world. Again, thanks so much for listening, and I'll talk with you again soon.